Okay, chapter 11. Oh yeah, what's the chapter? Yeah, chapter 11, Page of Swords. Oberon took the beautiful trembling hands into his own, and he brought them to his lips before kissing them. "Please don't kiss me, Oberon," begged Kain. "And why don't you like it?" asked Oberon, drawing closer, and he wrapped his arm around Kain's shoulder. "I can't," said Kain, blushing a deep red. "You can't what?" asked Oberon, kissing those sweet lips. The kiss silenced all resistance, and the next place he kissed was the same spot that Eric had bitten, and at the touch of his lips on his neck, Kain was overcome with a crying fit, and Oberon pulled at his hair, and all he could do was apologize for his stupidity. Kain silently cried for half an hour, and he had placed a pillow to his face to muffle the sound. He didn't want to wake up his father. "Let's both be honest here for a second," said Kain when he was calmer. "You are physically attracted to me, is that correct?" "Yes," said Oberon. "I want you so bad that it is driving me mad." That's just Oberon thinking. "I don't feel the same attraction," said Kain sadly, "and maybe it would be simpler if I lost it after you, but I don't, I'm sorry." "Te voy a matar, Arden," thought Oberon, and he clenched his fist while he struggled to hold in his nerve. "I don't know, what is attraction really?" "My grandpa," stammered Kain. Oberon rubbed his temple at the mention of the infamous grandpa. It wasn't the worst night of his life, but this one ranked among the top 10. "Don't give me that look. My grandpa, he raised me to believe that mating was necessary for finding true love. A woman expected for you to show them a good time in the bedchamber, otherwise they would leave you for someone more interesting. And he also told me that I should also expect perfection for whoever was unfortunate enough to mate with me. But the thing is, Oberon, with women it always felt like an obligation, and with Eugenia it became a source of stress," concluded Kain. "Maybe you're just bored of women and you wish to experiment. I get bored of doing the same person all the time, and would you like for me to school you how fun and pleasure and relaxing mating can be?" asked Oberon, smiling happily. "Let's say that I let you do with me what you will. What is going to happen tomorrow?" said Kain, lying down on the bed. It had been ages since he had experienced either of those three things: fun, pleasure, or relaxation. "We can worry about the consequences tomorrow," said Oberon, removing his shirt, and he felt that Kain would be more at ease if he undressed first. "Oh, Oberon, I'm so sick of one-night stand. If you're not even going to be monogamous with me, then just leave me alone," said Kain, throwing the bedsheets over his frame. He was afraid, but also very lonely. "I can be monogamous with you if that is the price that I must pay to sleep with you," said Oberon, warming himself beneath the bedsheets. "You will be monogamous for a night, and then you will go back to your old ways," said Kain bitterly. "And please, let's just leave things as they are. We function better as friends. Good friends are so rare these days, and why risk of friendship over a longing and a petty desire?" "Stop worrying about tomorrow and let's live in the now," insisted Oberon, locking Kain in the maiden embrace. Kain's body yielded to the tender caresses, and it had been months since his body had experienced pleasure, and more than pleasure, he truly missed feeling loved. When he was with a woman, he always made love, and he expected his partner to do the same for him, and since this rarely happened, he would become bitter and frustrated. The slow tempo was creating for Kain the illusion that he was with someone who loved and desired him. "I'm not very good at mating, and I get frustrated and anxious really easily. You're going to get bored of me very, very quickly, and then you will leave me just like all who came before," said Kain, thinking of his ex-girlfriend Eugenia. "Stop thinking about other women and just focus on me instead," insisted Oberon, warming his hand into Kain's pajama shirt. Kain allowed Oberon to undress him, and he allowed Oberon to caress every inch of his body. And just when his friend was getting carried away, Kain said the words, "I love you." Those three words immediately killed Oberon's inspiration, and his lust was quickly overtaken by the feelings of pity and guilt. And even a self-centered bastard like himself could tell that Kain truly meant those words. And that night Kain slept peacefully while locked inside Oberon's embrace. And as for Oberon, he did more thinking than sleeping. And come morning, he had decided to give monogamy a hard try. It had been ages since he had attended a serious relationship, and the last person he had ever been serious with had broken his heart. The following morning, Oberon awoke to find himself alone, and by the nightstand there was a note. Breakfast and lunch was waiting for him inside the refrigerator. He left the bed with a swift step, and he frowned when he noticed that he had 4 missed calls from his boss. It was only 10, and if he left now, he would only be 3 hours late for work. He ate his breakfast sandwich while speeding to work, and just when he was 5 blocks away, a police car sounded the alarm. He continued to drive while hoping that the cop didn't want to pull him over, and in the end he realized that it was with him. He moved aside to accept his speeding ticket, and he handed his license and registration to the officer, and he shrunk into his frame to become as small as possible. "You were going there a little fast, Oberon," said the officer. "Here's my license." "Hey, wait a minute. Not funny, Kain," said Oberon, recognizing the officer. "I'm going to leave you off with a warning," said Kain, pretending to scribble on his notepad. "Drive carefully." Kain lowered himself and he kissed Oberon on the cheek, and Oberon giggled before caressing his cheek. The two went their separate ways. Kain returned to his work, and his co-workers were staring at him again, but he didn't care. He was happy. It had been a long time since he felt happy with his existence, and a single kiss he gave Oberon was enough for him to make it to the rest of the day with a positive disposition. His personality took a 180, and he went from being cold and distant to friendly and approachable. Oberon arrived at his work at 11, and he went to the pool area to see if Eugenia needed something. At 3 months, she had a noticeable little belly, and from time to time she would take a sip from her smoothie, and he frowned when he saw that the guest house was being demolished. Eugenia, looking in that direction, said, "Too many bad memories." "Yours or Kain's?" asked Oberon. "Both," said Eugenia, huffing. "And my father needed you down in the office, and while you're out and about, I need you to inform Jeremy that the police was looking for him." "Again?" asked Oberon. And last December, Jeremy had been a suspect in a series of thefts that had occurred in the rich neighborhood. "This time he is being sought after as a witness," said Eugenia. "Apparently Kain wasn't the first man that Eric had beaten." "So the wicked love bite that Jeremy had a few months ago was Eric," said Oberon thoughtfully. "Seems like it. The lunatic claims that Jeremy was his new feeder, and in exchange of $100, Jeremy would allow Eric to buy him for as long as he wanted, and he needed both human and vampire blood to finish his metamorphosis," said Eugenia, rubbing her temple. "He could be lying to avoid jails," mused Oberon, "and perhaps the interview guy asked him why he engaged in vampirism with Kain, and the guy sort of latched on to that idea since it made him look crazy. Father thought so as well, and he was none too pleased to find out that our Jeremy was holding himself for such little money. And one would think that we pay him enough, and he must have a secret drug problem," mused Eugenia before sipping her judgmental milkshake. "He might have a gambling addiction instead," fancied Oberon. "He doesn't give me the vibe of a gambling addict. Then again, I do not know what to think of Jeremy. I almost like him at least," said Eugenia, sighing wearily. Oberon left Eugenia's house to see about Jeremy and Michael, and he found Jeremy by the streetlight waiting for the dog Coco to drop her little presents. And the dogs grew tense when Jeremy felt himself being watched, and Oberon lowered the window to allow himself to be known. "The police is after you again," said Oberon. "Tell me something I don't know," said Jeremy sarcastically. They need you to tell them about your relationship with Eric," said Oberon. "There isn't any relationship, and he doesn't have any proof that we have been together in the same room. It is his word against mine," said Jeremy, getting defensive, and he picked up his cat T-Bot in order to pet him nervously. "He's a liar that wishes to ruin me." "You don't need to tell me, tell the police," said Oberon. "Make me," hissed Jeremy, and T-Bot hissed in mimicry of his owner. "Suit yourself," said Oberon, rolling up the window. "Wait," said Jeremy, coming closer. "Do you need a roomie?" "My apartment only has 1 bedroom," said Oberon. "It's fine, I can sleep on the couch, and I'm used to doing without, and I just can't stand to live in the house anymore," said Jeremy, rubbing his shoulder. "And why don't you want to live in the nice house?" asked Oberon. And he has seen Jeremy's house, and it looked nice from the outside. Sidante has been bullying me non-stop ever since he got back from the trip, and to make matters worse, he spent part of my money on a trip to a country that he didn't want to visit to spend time with a girlfriend that dumped him in the end," said Jeremy. "Yes, about that," said Oberon, laughing. He added, "And since I'm not earning as much as before, I could use someone to help shoulder the burden of the ever-increasing rental prices." You could try for a house or a small apartment of your own, said Jeremy. It is important to own a property now before things get really expensive. Since when did you become a financial expert? Asked Oberon, smiling warmly. I am not an expert. My psychic Irina's animal familiar Cassandra is the expert. And she said the houses are only going to go up, and then they're going to crash down, and then the rentals are going to be super expensive. And she says that it is not now or never situation, and as we speak, Irina is house shopping with her family in the suburbs. And you should jump on the last train before you miss your opportunity, said Jeremy. Think about it. I still have some money saved up, and I can pay for the down if you can put your credit. Jeremy reached into his pocket and he handed a cashier's check to Oberon, and he wrote on the back of the check, down for house or apartment. Oberon looked at the check with suspicion. It seemed real enough, and he carefully folded it before putting it inside his wallet. He always wanted to buy a property, but he could never scrape enough to afford a down, and now he was in possession of $12,000. He drove to Michael's office, and along the way he mused, dog walkers earn a lot of money, and he must walk dogs at night for other clients. And maybe I should try to be a dog walker too, said Oberon. Then again, dogs hate me, and I hate them as well. I'm not good at anything. Oberon parked before making his way to the lobby, and he was always staring whenever he entered the Michael skyscraper, and Michael didn't know the building. He just rented the top offices. Oberon didn't know this, so he fancied that Michael owned the entire skyscraper. Oberon eventually made it to the top offices, and when the elevator door opened, he was greeted by Malik. Michael suddenly had an emergency, so I was instructed to manage you, explained Malik. Manage me how? Asked Oberon, shrinking into himself. Don't worry about it, come to my office, said Malik, walking ahead. And Oberon followed after Malik, and his eyes naturally wandered towards the windows. And from up high, he had a great view of the city, so this was what it felt like to be on top of the world. Malik gestured to a table with a pen, pencil, and some papers. We need you to answer some questions and take your time with them. Even if you don't know the answers, skip to the next question, instructed Malik. Oberon meekly sat down before the papers, and he frowned when he saw that the first item on the menu was a simple math question. Don't put on that face. I also had to do the stupid exam when I joined the corporation, said Malik dryly. Just answer as many as you can so we can both continue with our life, and whether you do good or bad, this is just a formality, so there is no pressure. Oberon spent the rest of the day answering the questions, and he got so hyper-focused on the exam that he didn't notice Michael entering the room, and his boss quietly judged him for hours, and when he finally concluded his exam, Oberon realized that darkness had fallen. Took you long enough, said Michael, taking the exam. I'll give you a grade tomorrow, and here's some pocket change for the overtime. Oberon accepted the $100 bill happily, and he frowned when Michael took it back, and his boss broke down the overtime paid into smaller bills. And Oberon departed with his money before Michael had a chance to take it away again. And while he was in the elevator, Oberon counted his money, and he frowned when he noticed that he had $5 extra. He returned to the top floor to return the $5 to his boss, and Michael smiled thinly. Oberon had passed the real test. Michael didn't return home right away, and he patiently graded the exam. And Oberon looked at his cell phone, and he noticed that he had 10 missed calls from Kain. He called Kain, and Oberon spoke first. I'm sorry for not answering sooner, and I had a thing at work that completely ate up my time. That's okay, said Kain. And you want to come over to my house? We're making barbecue ribs, your favorite. Gosh, sheesh, you didn't need to go to the trouble of making my favorite meal, said Oberon, giggling. It was no big deal. I love to cook. I cook practically every day, and if I could, I would cook for a living. But come home already, alright? Insisted Kain. I will, said Oberon. Oberon arrived at Kain's house around 9, and he ate a late dinner, and he placed in the refrigerator the lunch he had forgotten to eat. So how was your day? Asked Kain, sitting down before Oberon. It was fine, boring even, said Oberon, and he was speaking in between his bites and sometimes with his mouth full. Boring is good, said Kain. Boring means that there were no problems. I never thought of boredom that way, mused Oberon. If he was bored, it meant that everything was alright in his world. Are you an orphan, Oberon? Asked Kain. Did you do a background check on me? Asked Oberon, raising an eyebrow. No, my uncle did, and he claims to have found nothing out of the ordinary, so I didn't ask him what he had found, said Kain. In answer to your questions, I have parents who casted me out when I was 17, and if it wasn't for Natasha, I would have starved to death on the street, and she placed a roof over my head while I struggled to get back on my feet, said Oberon. And he also had a sister, but he was angry at her at the moment. And why don't you live with her then? Asked Kain. It is complicated. I moved out of her house when I got a job, and her parents hate me, and she likes her privacy, and well, me being there was making it difficult for her to find a lover, explained Oberon, putting his fork down, and he was no longer hungry anymore. At least it didn't cast you out when you were 5, said Grandma Esther. And why did your parents abandon you? Were they poor? Asked Oberon, feeling a sort of kinship with Grandma Esther. No, they weren't poor. I remember living in a nice house, and one day they just left me in the park and they never returned for me, said Grandma Esther, stopping her needlework. Did you ever confront them? Did you ever force them to explain why they wanted nothing to do with you? Asked Oberon, while mutilating his steak with his fork and knife. No, said Esther. Why? Asked Oberon. I don't know. When I was smaller, the reason why I was abandoned seemed worth finding out. But over time I stopped caring. I was too busy being a wife and mother to devote energy into something so trivial. I am certain they had their reasons, but at the end of the day, having an explanation wouldn't have brought me any happiness, or so I fancy. Huh, sighed Esther. I suppose that why isn't important, all things considered, mused Oberon. I am sorry for opening up all scars, said Kain apologetically. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye, God bless.